Nicki don't need to worry about Don. She need to be with damn Don Lemon, and Nicki Minaj need to be worried about Chris Hansen. She needs to be worried about.
Yesterday, U.S. Weekly broke the news that Nicki Minaj's house is at risk of being seized due to a lawsuit.
Under Trump's rules, she should be deported because I don't think, reportedly, that she is a legal citizen here. She is undocumented.
Nicki Minaj really wakes up every day and somehow finds a new way to embarrass herself because every time it seems like things can't get worse, they do. After that awkward moment at Amphis with Erica Kirk, she clearly thought she was about to drag Don Lemon, but once again she ended up playing herself. The real talk that leaked right after made it obvious that this situation was never really about Don Lemon at all. This is allegedly about money. People close to the situation say Nicki has been spiraling and lashing out at everyone because the checks are not coming in like they used to. A major reason behind that is her decision to marry and stand 10 toes down behind a registered offender, a choice that continues to follow her both publicly and financially. In fact, Nicki almost lost her house over a lawsuit connected directly to her husband, Kenneth Petty. She barely managed to keep her Hidden Hills mansion and had to pay around $500,000 just to save it. Instead of treating that as a serious warning sign, she stayed online doing the most, which is why Hughley felt the need to step in and say something. He made it clear she has way bigger problems to worry about than Don Lemon, especially when her husband, who has strict legal limitations, is allegedly draining the money she spent her entire career building. Some of Nicki's fans tried to call that settlement a win just because she didn't lose the house. But imagine being forced to hand over $500,000 because your spouse cannot handle his own legal issues. Kenneth does the crime and Nicki pays the cost, and that is a tough look. Now, people are raising eyebrows at her teaming up with Erica Kirk and allegedly dipping into MAGA-adjacent spaces, possibly to help cover financial damage tied to her husband's situation. It is messy and it feels desperate. Watching someone with Nicki's level of success fumble her legacy like this is honestly sad. Hughley has said she deserves no sympathy because these were her choices, and she chose to align herself with people who protect offenders. But before getting deeper into that, here's how this house situation even started. Back in 2024, Nicki was hit with a default judgment for roughly $500,000 related to a lawsuit involving Kenneth Petty. The case traces back to a 2019 incident in Germany while Nicki was on tour. Reports say Nicki had an altercation with a female security guard, and when another guard stepped in to break it up, Kenneth became involved. According to the lawsuit, the male security guard, Thomas Weidenmuller, tried to de-escalate the situation, but things quickly escalated. Thomas alleges that Nicki told Kenneth to handle it, and Kenneth allegedly struck him from the side, resulting in a broken jaw. The lawsuit named both Nicki and Kenneth, but neither responded, and they left Germany after authorities issued a warrant. Because they failed to respond, the court ruled against them automatically. Even after the judgment was entered, the money still was not paid. The security guard later asked the court to enforce the judgment, including requesting that Nicki's Hidden Hills home be sold to cover the debt. The judge was reportedly considering it due to the available equity. To satisfy the judgment, the court was preparing to move forward with a forced sale. But just one day before that process could officially begin, Nicki suddenly came up with the money and paid the full $500,000, stopping the house from being sold. So no, this was not some big win for Nicki. Yes, the house stayed hers, but scrambling at the very last second to save it is still embarrassing. Especially when the bill was not even for something she personally did. This all happened because her husband, who is already a registered offender, allegedly could not control himself. That alone should have been a serious wake-up call for Nicki. Instead of sitting down and dealing with the real issue at home, she redirected all that built-up frustration toward journalist Don Lemon. Here's how Don Lemon even got dragged into this. Don posted coverage of a protest in Minnesota, where activists protesting ICE interrupted a church service. The key detail that Nicki clearly missed is that the protest was connected to leadership at that church. One of the pastors, David Easterwood, was also serving as the acting director of ICE's St. Paul field office. Don Lemon was simply doing his job, live streaming and explaining what was happening on the ground. Nicki jumped into the situation without checking any facts. She took it personally and went straight to attacking Don Lemon online. She shared an image of a Chucky doll and wrote, "Don Lemon is disgusting. How dare you? I want that thug in jail." He would never do that to any other religion. Lock him up.
So you can see the protesters here have gathered over here. They're in the middle of the church. So in the beginning of the church service, the pastor was speaking, and Nicki stood up and said her piece, and then the protesters surrounded her. But this is a clandestine mission. I think they found out according to them, this is according to Operation Pull-Up, that one of the pastors here is a member of ICE, and so here we go.
That post made it clear she did not understand what she was reacting to at all. She saw that it involved a church and immediately put herself on a pedestal, acting like a defender of Christianity. But let's be honest, people are not buying this sudden image shift. Like many MAGA-aligned Christians, Nicki does not seem to live by what she publicly preaches. Don Lemon did not let that slide. He responded to TMZ with a sharp statement saying, "I'm not surprised. Nicki Minaj does not understand journalism and is weighing in on matters that are above her capacity." Honestly, a more fitting image for that post would have been a pick-me doll. And when it comes to Nicki saying Don Lemon should be locked up, he didn't let that go either. In a video, Don pointed out that Nicki should be worried about her own legal status, noting that she has publicly acknowledged being undocumented in the past. No matter how anyone feels about Don Lemon, the hypocrisy here is hard to ignore. Nicki was born in Trinidad and Tobago, and she has openly spoken about her immigration status. Back in 2018, she addressed it while criticizing the Trump administration's family separation policy. At the time, she wrote, "I came to this country as an illegal immigrant at 5 years old. I can't imagine the horror of being in a strange place and having my parents stripped away from me at the age of 5. This is so scary to me. Please stop. Can you try to imagine the terror and panic these kids feel right now?" Those were her own words, and they are still out there. Fast forward to now, and that same Nicki Minaj is openly grifting toward MAGA-adjacent spaces, calling Trump handsome and dashing. That switch-up has people asking real questions. How tight is her money situation that she feels comfortable selling out this hard? Or has she genuinely lost perspective? Some folks, including Hughley, say none of this is surprising because Nicki fits right in with that crowd. DL's point goes deeper than just politics. He has said Nicki has a long history of standing 10 toes down behind people accused or convicted of serious crimes, and it is not limited to her husband. Long before Kenneth Petty, Nicki publicly supported her brother Jelani, who was convicted and sentenced to a lengthy prison term for a serious crime involving a minor.
Say to Nicki Minaj, I normally don't respond to things like this, but F it, I'm gonna do it this time. I think Nicki Minaj has made it very clear how she feels about African Americans in this country, or I don't think she's one of them, obviously, and she should, under Trump's rules, she should be deported, because I don't think, reportedly, that she is a legal citizen here. She is undocumented, and so she has shown her disdain for African Americans. So why are you supporting her? Why are you buying her records? She's also supporting, I have lots of gay friends who love Nicki Minaj. Why are you supporting this homophobic bigot?
The case included DNA evidence, and despite that, Nicki wrote a letter to the judge asking for leniency, describing her brother as the most patient, gentle, genuine, giving, selfless man. That letter became public, and many people never forgot it. Some are now saying that maybe this is not a new version of Nicki at all. Maybe this is who she has always been, and now she is just moving louder and more recklessly. Hughley believes she has much bigger problems to focus on than Don Lemon ever was. People are also questioning whether this mega turn is about desperation, financial pressure, or the fallout from standing behind a husband who keeps creating expensive problems. When you step back and look at the pattern, it starts to feel less like a sudden breakdown and more like years of unresolved choices finally colliding. Nicki has always been vocal, combative, and unapologetic. But now the stakes are higher, and the consequences are public. The money pressure, the legal drama tied to her husband, and the backlash from aligning with controversial political spaces all seem to be stacking on top of each other. Instead of addressing those pressures directly, she keeps lashing out at easier targets like journalists or critics, which only makes the situation louder and messier. What frustrates a lot of people is that Nicki is not some powerless figure caught off guard. She is a veteran in the industry who understands optics, branding, and public reaction better than most. That is why this shift toward MAGA talking points feels calculated to some and reckless to others. It reads less like genuine belief and more like survival mode. When artists feel their relevance slipping or their finances tightening, they sometimes chase new audiences without thinking through the long-term damage. In Nicki's case, that gamble risks alienating the very fanbase that helped build her empire. D.L. Hughley's criticism hits harder because it is not just about politics or a single outburst. He is pointing to a repeated pattern of loyalty to the wrong people at the wrong time. Time and again, Nicki has chosen to publicly defend men facing serious accusations or convictions, even when the evidence is overwhelming. That loyalty might come from personal trauma, family bonds, or a belief that standing by people proves strength. But from the outside, it reads as a refusal to draw moral lines, especially when vulnerable people are involved. At this point, the question is not whether Nicki can recover musically or financially. It is whether she is willing to take accountability and shift her priorities. Public feuds, political grifting, and online attacks are distractions from deeper issues that will not disappear on their own. The house scare, the lawsuits, and the criticism are all warning signs. If she keeps moving like this, the damage will not just be to her image, but to the legacy she spent decades building. That is why so many people are saying Don Lemon was never the real issue. The real issue is Nicki Minaj versus the consequences of her own choices. At the end of the day, this whole situation feels like a slow-motion collapse that people have been warning about for years. Not because Nicki lacks talent or influence, but because talent cannot protect you from bad decisions forever. Fame can delay consequences, money can cushion mistakes, and fans can excuse a lot. But none of that lasts when the cracks keep widening. What people are reacting to now is not one tweet, one rant, or one feud. It is the accumulation of choices stacking up with nowhere left to hide. There is also a clear difference between being controversial and being careless. Nicki built her brand on shock value, boldness, and not backing down. That worked when the fights were about charts, rival rappers, or industry politics.
Nicki Minaj's brother and his attorneys thought he would be walking out of court a free man today. Jelani Mirage was convicted last November of repeatedly raping an 11-year-old.
But once the drama shifts into legal issues, real-world harm, and defending the indefensible, the audience changes how it responds. The same attitude that once looked fearless now reads as out of touch. And when fans start questioning your judgment instead of just your attitude, that is a dangerous place to be. What makes this harder to watch is that Nicki still has options. She could pull back, get quiet, refocus on music, and let the noise die down. She could set boundaries, stop speaking on things she clearly does not understand, and protect what is left of her credibility. But instead, she keeps leaning into chaos. That choice suggests either deep denial or a belief that controversy will always save her. History shows that strategy works until it doesn't. There is also the issue of accountability. Nicki often frames herself as misunderstood or attacked, but accountability means acknowledging how your actions affect others. Defending people with serious convictions, minimizing harm, or attacking journalists doing their job sends a message, whether she intends it or not. And once that message is out there, she cannot control how it lands. The public is no longer separating the art from the artist. They are connecting the dots and asking whether this behavior has always been part of the picture. Financial pressure seems to be the unspoken elephant in the room. When lawsuits pile up, settlements hit hard, and income streams slow down, stress changes people. It pushes them into corners where pride and panic collide. That is when bad alliances happen, and desperate moves get justified as strategy. Aligning with political spaces that once stood against everything she claimed to believe in raises questions about motive. People are not wrong to wonder whether this is ideology or survival. Another layer is legacy. Nicki Minaj is not just another celebrity with a platform. She is a cultural figure who opened doors, shifted the sound of mainstream rap, and inspired an entire generation. That is why the disappointment feels heavier. People expected growth, not regression. They expected wisdom, not constant defensiveness. Watching someone with that much influence shrink their world down to online fights and reactionary takes feels like wasted potential. None of this means Nicki cannot recover. Redemption is possible, but it requires honesty and restraint. It requires stepping away from the echo chambers, listening instead of reacting, and accepting that loyalty without limits is not strength. It also requires understanding that protecting your legacy sometimes means protecting it from yourself. Silence, reflection, and recalibration are not signs of weakness, they are survival tools. So when people say Don Lemon was never the real issue, they are right. He was just a spark that landed on something already dry. The real issue is unresolved patterns, unchecked loyalty, and a refusal to adapt when the world changes. Whether Nicki chooses to confront that, or keep fighting shadows, will decide how this chapter ends. And for someone who has already written herself into music history, the question now is whether she will protect that legacy or keep burning it down piece by piece.